Before I start with my speech today, I would like at first to ask you, do you have anybody in this room on your computer, either at home or at work or at studying institution, the screen like that one? Have you ever seen some picture like this one? Anybody? One, two? Could you please give me any idea of what kind of picture is that? Debian, of course. So, practically 99% people in this room are computing people, so we know that there are many, many different operating systems. And besides the amateur radio, let's say like the stations like those ones, I always prefer to, to motivate people to try to switch from Microsoft Windows families to the Linux families of the operating systems for several reasons. And I usually want to make a joke with people. For example, my question to you all in this room is how many of you are using Microsoft Windows every day? Can you raise the hand? All of you. Okay. My second question, do you know who is Mr. Bill Gates? Do you know who is Mr. Bill Gates? Okay, all of you know. Can you give me any reason why Mr. Bill Gates is a so famous person all around the world? It's very rich. Okay. My next question, is anybody... Of course, but the first question the first response I heard about his richness is very important right now. I'm going to tell you why. My next question and final question for this part of session is there anybody in this room who has $1 million in your pocket right now? No, but nobody, I suppose. But I'm asking you, if Mr. Bill Gates is the one of the richest person in the world, and nobody here has $1 million in your pocket, why do you use his operating systems and make him more rich? Because I suppose you are Moroccan people, you are very honest people, and you are not going to use pirated version of Microsoft Windows. I suppose that everybody in this room has paid to use Microsoft Windows. I suppose so. So why do you pay to Mr. Bill Gates to be richer than he already is rich? So that's why I want people to use Linux, because Linux is for free. You can easily go to internet, download Linux, install on your machine. You don't need to pay any single dirham, dollar, euro, Japanese yen, whatever else to use Linux. But if you are good customers, you have to pay, I don't know exactly in this moment, if it is $300 or maybe $500, $1,000 to pay the license for Microsoft Windows, if you are honest people and good customers. But eventually, and according to the regulations, most around the world. But what is the problem? The problem is that Linux is on the complete opposite side. Linux is free. Okay, so much about that. To let you know about this story, I would just to make some short introduction of our timing. Before the coffee break, I have maybe some 20 minutes just to start with that. After that, it is the coffee break, and after the coffee break, if I'm not wrong, I have approximately the longest part of this session today. It is approximately 2 hours and something, 2 hours and 15 minutes until the lunch time. Then we go to the lunch, and after the lunch, we change the room. I think from the auditorium go to the room number 3, and there I will have 1 hour and 45 minutes. And also after the second coffee break in the afternoon, we have the finishing session of approximately 1 hour, also in the room number 3. And that last session will be very interesting for you, and I'm going to tell you in just a couple of minutes why the last session will be very interesting. But you must be present all the time if possible. Okay, this is just an introductory slide. When I was in September 2016 as a guest of one university in India, and On the exact day when I arrived to India, I saw in the Indian newspaper this headline about their students at one of the prestigious universities in India. It is so-called Indian Institute of Technology, or IIT Bombay, in the city named Mumbai city, very big city in India. And you can see in this picture a very happy group of the PhD and master and even bachelor students and their younger teachers in India, who manage, after several years of delay, to manage one of the satellites. As you probably know, India is satellite power, nuclear power. They have rockets to expand, to put rockets in the space. And I'm telling you that because India is also famous with participating in the amateur radio satellites. During my speech, I will introduce you about the amateur radio satellites because we who play with the amateur radio communication, we also have our own satellites in the sky. Okay, that is approximately the title of this session. And now you are going to see my personal data. Please take a note about my internet email address. A little bit later, I will distribute some business card with my email address, but please don't hesitate to contact me at any time by email. I'm not using, believe me or not, I'm not using social networks such as Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever else. I don't use any of them, but I regularly checked my internet email maybe 5, maybe 10 times per day. So be assured that I will respond to all of your technical questions, of course, provided that I'm capable to respond to your inquiry, technical inquiry. I'm not an expert in every aspect of the amateur radio, but I have some 20, 25, a little bit more years of experience in the amateur radio, so I could try to do my best to respond to your questions. In the final line, that you can see that in red, you can see my radio amateur account, or better to say, amateur radio call sign. This is registered in my country of Serbia, and I'm going to spell that for you. We call that username Yankee Tango number 7 Mike Papa Bravo. Once again, Yankee Tango 7 Mike Papa Bravo. Why that call sign or unique identifier is interesting for you? Because that is only one person in the world can use that identifier, and that is myself. Why is that interesting? For example, this is my name, my given name, Miroslav, and my family name, Škorić. Miroslav is let's say, one of the relatively popular names in the southeast of Europe. So not only in my country of Serbia, but you probably heard about the Bosnia country, about Croatia country, about Czech Republic, about Slovakia, about Poland, about Slovenia, about Macedonia, even some parts of Russia. So many millions of people in Europe have a given name Miroslav. Škorić, not as a family name, okay, maybe not so distributed all around the region, but as you can see, in my internet email address, I use my family name as my username. And the suffix in this address, UNS, University of Novi Sad. Novi Sad is the city in Serbia where I live. So we have our local university where I'm very active there. So this is my account, University of Novi Sad, AC, of course, Academy, RS, please. RS is not Russia. Many people tell me, oh, okay, you live in Russia because this is RS, means Russia. No, RS means Republic of Serbia. And Russia is RU. RU is Russia and RS is Serbia. And eventually, one day, if you become radio amateurs and join me in this activity, you will have some similar addressing system like this one. That one addressing system is used only for the radio amateurs who are using, of course, computers similar to the internet, and some other devices to connect to the radio stations. So only then you can use that email addressing system. And in this situation, I can be, let's say, somewhere in the middle of the desert, in Sahara Desert or anywhere else in the world, or somewhere in the middle of the jungle, and I can communicate with people all around the world. Of course, depending on my technical capabilities. If I have such a small radio with such a small antenna like those two radios, I can talk with the people, let's say, some 5 to 10 to 20 kilometers around, not much more than that. But if I go to the top level of this building and install a very big, large antenna, I can communicate directly from here to the other continent. You can never do that with your cell phone. And in that case, I can use my radio stations without any, how to say, cell repeater or cell station repeater or base station in the cell telephones. So we who are the radio amateurs are only use our amateur radio stations. So a little bit later I will explain you about that. This is something interesting for you, for your information. I would like to express my thankfulness to the government of the Kingdom of Morocco because they accepted my inquiry and they allowed me to, while spending my time here at this conference, to use the special call sign with the prefix of Morocco. For example, you can see Yankee Tango 7 Mike Papa Bravo. That call sign or that identifier consists of 3 parts. The first part is Yankee Tango. It is called prefix. The second part is the number 7, is the number, and the last part, the remaining part, is so-called suffix. So you have prefix, number, and suffix. Prefix is always, in all countries all around the world, is dedicated to the country. So Yankee Tango can be used only in Serbia and nowhere else. Number 7 is geographical divide within the country. So I suppose the similar situation is in Morocco. You have provinces or counties or something like that within your country. So each part of the country has one separate number, number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, until 9 and 0, yeah, of course. So in this case, I applied to your government. I had to make a scanned PDF version of my regular Serbian license to transmit the signals, and I sent to them, and they allowed me to temporarily change the prefix, which is called Charlie November or Charlie Nancy number 2. The suffix is the same, MPB. I just asked MPB to be the same because it is easier for me to spell in English. Because you know, English is international language for the radio amateurs. In my country, which is Serbia, we don't speak English regularly in every day. We have our own domestic language, which is called Serbian. But we understand Croatian, Bosnian, Macedonian, Slovenian, all the languages in the Southeast Europe, I can understand. But English is not spoken. Not to mention about French. You all speak French in Morocco, but the only thing that I can speak in French is je t'aime. That is the only thing that I know in French. Je t'aime, especially when I talk with some young ladies or something like that. Only that. But eventually, Charlie Nancy or Charlie November is only for Morocco. And I'm allowed to use it this one week, only 1 week. Okay, today, as I introduced you, we have approximately some 5 hours with breaks, and we are going to try to respond to answer to some of those questions. Why do we need amateur radio at all? Because my intention here is to motivate you who are not the radio amateurs to start with this activity. And I strongly hope that some of you, after my session, after this conference is finished, will be motivated enough to contact your amateur radio union, amateur radio association of the Kingdom of Morocco and join those people. The headquarters, I think it is somewhere in Rabat city. So you can join those people and ask what is the best way to start with the amateur radio. why don't we use cell telephones or internet communication or something else instead of the amateur radio? How much does it cost you to start? How much money do you need to purchase that radio station or to purchase that cable or antenna or something like that, etc., etc.? So we are going to discuss a little bit more about that later, maybe in the afternoon. How much, what are the procedures that you can save some money in your pocket? You don't need to spend thousands of dollars for that to start with the amateur radio. How much time do you need to start from the very beginning level and to upgrade in years to come? You can upgrade your technical system. It is not a problem for the radiometers. You can always ask me, okay, this is a very nice story, but please tell us, is there anybody in the world who are already using that? Yes, many millions of people in the world are using that. So no, that is not a problem, especially in the academic community. About the plans for the future, because any regular academic paper finishes with the future work, future investigations, so we are going to do. And what I also announced at the very end session, at the last hour in the afternoon, before the dinner or whatever, I will be your professor, I will be your teacher, and all of you will be my students. And I'm going to make a student examination for you. So please be very careful. All the slides I will show, that will include 3 asterisks. You can see 3 stars somewhere in the slide, maybe here, maybe there, maybe somewhere here, maybe somewhere here, somewhere in the corner. When you see 3 stars, what does it mean? 3 stars mean there is a tricky question somewhere in this slide. And please try either to take a note or try to remember what I am talking about that particular slide, because in the last session I will ask you, and who is the good student, he or she will get a special prize from me. And those prizes that I will distribute in the evening, you will never forget. Okay, so I suppose maybe some 10 to 15 minutes to finish with this part. Anybody has a schedule? Okay, let's try to talk about why do we need the amateur radio. You don't need to remember the texts in this particular slide. Those are the headlines I noticed in the technical newspapers, in the general newspapers, by using the internet, etc., in the Western countries, in the rich Western countries such as United Kingdom, Japan, United States of America, Germany, Italy, Western countries. They noticed in the last, let's say, 10 to 15 years, a slight decrease in the interest in the younger generation for studying so-called STEM. Science, technology, mathematics, computing, whatever else. So they noticed the decrease in the interest in younger generations. I don't know particularly what is the experience in Morocco. Maybe you can tell me. What about the interest in younger generations to study computing, software, hardware, electronics, antennas, whatever else? But in the Western world, we decided that the amateur radio would be one very interesting motivation factor to the young people to go to the world of science and technology. And you can ask me how you decided that. Well, in my country and in many countries all around the world, it is possible to start to using amateur radio stations and to talk to the amateur radio stations with people all around the world at the age of 12, of the age to 15 years of age. So even including younger kids, young childs of 12 to 15 years of age, he or she can pass the examination for the radio amateurs, get the license from your government, and after that start to talking with the amateur radio stations. Even much before they decided what career in their life would it to be. So eventually, if a young person of 12 years of age started using the technologies, cables, antennas, radio stations, computing, etc., it is a very good chance that they will decide one day when they are mature of, I don't know, 17 or 18 years of age, they will decide to go to study electronics, antennas, etc., etc. Especially, the big problem is with girls, with women. In many Western countries, for example, at technical universities, you have 100 boys and maybe 5 to 10 girls only. So in Western countries, it is considered a very bad ratio in between boys and girls. So that is why they are trying to use amateur radio to attract much more girls and women to go into that technology. So, to be very short in that, my idea is try to reverse the trend. You can tell me eventually during the coffee break or something, what is the situation? I'm just wondering what is the situation in Morocco country, because I visited several countries in Asian regions such as China, India, Thailand, Malaysia, Uzbekistan, South Korea, etc., etc. And I noticed in some countries 50-50. In one room, technical university, 50 girls, 50 boys. So it is excellent, 50-50. But in many places, I noticed 100 boys and only one girl sitting somewhere in the room. So this is very bad. So I don't know, maybe you can tell me, Professor Zaz, what is the situation, generally speaking, in Morocco?
But normally, for the case of competition, we have 80% women and 20%.
So it is completely the opposite. Okay, even better, even better. So that is why I'm not going to bother you with those details. Okay, let's see just a little bit what are the main goals of the amateur radio. As you can see, it is not only to talk to the other people all around the world, to talk by using the amateur radio station. It's just to promote science, to promote technology. Many other professions can be included in the amateur radio. You don't need to be an electrical engineer to become the radio amateur. For example, when I was starting to study, I finished with in the economical faculty at the University of Novi Sad in the software department. But I'm not an electrical engineer. But with playing with the amateur radio for many years, I learned many things, how to build the antenna, how to attach antenna, how to build the good grounding system against the thunderbolts, if it is some hurricane or something like that. So many technical things I learned in my 2.5 decades in the amateur radio, even though I never, let's say, managed to finish some electronics engineer university or something like that. And as you can see, the amateur radio is a technical hobby. It is not a profession. Almost nobody all around the world lives and makes money for living, thankfully, to the amateur radio. But you never know. For example, in one part of my career, I managed to find a job, very well-paid job, thankfully to the simple fact that I was the radio amateur. Because in that period of time, my employers in that time didn't ask it for a person with a PhD diploma or something like that. No, they wanted somebody who is very skilled with talking to the radio stations. And I applied to them. And I told them, okay, mister, I'm the radio amateur. I'm very skilled in using the amateur radio stations. They told me, okay, please, you are employed in our company. So you never know. I suppose that maybe some older person in this room, you have kids who are students or something like that. Maybe they will find a good job, thankfully, to the amateur radio. You never know. It is a hobby, but it is very well regulated. As I told you at the very beginning, thankfully to the understanding of the government of the Kingdom of Morocco, I got the temporary license, or better to say authorization or permission to transmit the signal while I'm here in Morocco. It is actually very complicated, relatively complicated for even for a person who lives here in Morocco or a person who lives in my country of Serbia to get the license. The principle and the path, how to start and how to finish with your license is very similar to the driving license. You already know. You can't go to the parking place and can you switch on the engine of your car and go to driving to the street. It is not possible if you don't have the driving license. So the similar situation is in the amateur radio. You need to have some kind of, let's say, a driving license to talk to the amateur radio station. But it is not a big deal. You can apply to the Amateur Radio Union of Morocco. It is called, if I'm not wrong, the abbreviation is ARRM or something, Association of Royal Radiometers or something. I'm not good in French, as I told you. So eventually you can contact those people and they will give you the idea what is the easiest way for you to start with the amateur radio. For example, in my country, if you want just to use a talkie-walkie portable station, you need to go to the amateur radio school for some, let's say, maybe some 20 days or 30 days, maybe half an hour per day, let's say 2 times per week or something like that. So maybe in 1 month, 2 months, you are going to learn the basic things of the amateur radio station. After that, you will go to the, let's say, to the jury, to your teachers, all the radiometers, and you are going to have the examination. Examination is not a big deal. Almost 99% people pass the examination for the first time, no problem at all. After that, you go to send your inquiry to your government, to your Ministry of Communications. I don't know the agency. You can tell what is the agency in
regulated. He's in charge of offering frequency and establish radio amateur frequencies.
So it is very easy. You just contact your government after you successfully pass the examination, and they will give you the license. I'm going to show you my personal license. Just a moment. It is similar to the credit card or something like that. And I'm just going to show you that. This is valid in Serbia, but it is, of course, it is not valid. It is not the international one. I can use it all around Europe. So if I travel from my country of Serbia to Croatia, to Hungary, to Germany, to France, I can use it, but not for Morocco. In Morocco, I had to make a copy of that license and send to your government and ask it, please give me the permission for the Morocco country only. So they gave me one piece of paper, a very big paper, and I have it in my room, so I can use this. Okay, a little bit later, and during the coffee break you will see. So it is like a driving license. I don't know, how does it look, driving license here in your country? Is it similar to that one? Yeah, that's all. So, as I said, it is a hobby, technical activity, but very well regulated. Okay, I'm not going to waste too much time. What is the usage of the amateur radio? So, you can see, you can learn how to build a radio station, how to attach the cable, how to attach the antenna, how to connect to the modem, to the computer, how to install the amateur radio software, etc., etc. Many things you can do. Then you can exchange your knowledge with somebody else. For example, yesterday we all had a very good opportunity in another room to see a group of people working with drones. Have you been yesterday here? You saw the people with drones. Some of those people are radio amateurs, and they are also using amateur radio stations to control the drones, whatever else. So many things are possible. For example, if we produce very small radio station, even smaller than those ones, we can attach that radio station to a drone and put a drone 100 meters above us, and the drone will work as a base station for all the radio amateurs who are living in that area. So it is a very interesting experiment. We can also use balloons. You know what is balloons? A machinery with a hot air inside. We can put balloon 1 kilometer above us, attaching one radio station to go upstairs. So that radio station is going to cover maybe 20, 30, 50 kilometers around. So many experiments are possible, and many people all around the world are using those experiments every day. And of course, giving such, let's say, tutorials or seminars like this one. Unfortunately, nobody of us radio amateurs like this, but in this, let's say, emergency situation, amateur radio can help. In the history, the experience teaches us that in many cases, there are situations when you can't use your cell telephone or fixed telephone or internet connection to call somebody to help to save your life for your family or your property, material property, your house, something like that. For example, in many cases in Asian countries, such as India or some other countries, in Malaysia, in Indonesia, and many other countries, in United States and America, they have tornadoes. After the tornadoes, after the hurricanes, your cell telephone is not working, maybe 1, 2, 3 hours, maybe 1, 2, 3 days. If it is base station tower is broken after the big wind, you can't communicate with everybody. And my question to you is how you are going to call the ambulance, how you are going to call the police to help you, to save your life. If there is a big flood, let's say a big river makes the problem, a big flood, maybe there is no electricity because you know, when the water enters the cable, there is no electricity, short circuit and no. But if I have, my battery is fully charged, I can use my radio station with me everywhere, and I can use that radio station to call the gentleman who is also radiometer, who is living 10 kilometers from here. So in many situations, the amateur radio can help you not only to be, let's say, a better person by means of the technology, but can even prevent your personal and your family security, safety in your life. You never know. Okay, and I hope during this day that our fellow radio amateurs from Morocco, from the Kingdom of Morocco, will teach you what is the easiest way for you to start with the amateur radio activity. For example, whenever I live abroad to visit some foreign countries, I usually look at the top level of the floors of the houses and I look for special antennas. Because my experience tells me, okay, it is very interesting antenna. It might be that some radio amateurs is living here or something like that. So it is just about the experience of that. You can imagine that the majority of radio amateurs live in big cities, in urban city zones. So it is easier expect that radio amateurs in Morocco country lives in the big cities such as Rabat or Marrakesh or I don't know, Casablanca, whatever else, rather than somewhere in the middle of the desert of Sahara Desert or some, it is a slower chance to find the amateur somewhere in the village. But in the big cities, is it okay? We have our organization everywhere. It doesn't depend if it is Serbia country or Morocco country or China or Russia or America or Germany, whatever else. We have our organization. Group of people form amateur radio clubs, national radio amateur unions, societies, whatever else. On the international level, we have several millions of radio amateurs all around the world. Practically speaking, in each country, everywhere in the world, you will find some radio amateurs. I don't know, in some countries it is only 10 people, in some countries 100, 1,000, 10,000. My question for you, do you have any idea what are the 2 top-level countries with the biggest number of the radio amateurs in the world? Do you have any idea? India. Sorry? India. No? Anybody else? Any idea? Two countries with the biggest amateur radio population. Russia. Sorry? Russia. Russia, no? USA. The second one? China. No? No China? Japan. So, now, try to imagine this situation. United States and Japan. Can you tell me, generally speaking, something in the technological level? Can you tell me about what is characteristic for United States and Japan in technology? The number one, the top level quality. So the biggest number of the radio amateurs live in the rich Western countries such as United States, Japan, Germany, etc., Great Britain, France, or something like that. It doesn't mean that if China is the biggest population, but very few number of radiometers in China. India, relatively good, but in percentage, maybe 0.0001% of the general population in India. And some other big countries with big population doesn't mean. But technologically speaking, amateur radio increase the quality of your industry, the quality of your education, etc., etc. In the next part, I will show you some experiment that I did at my home, because at my home I have one of my experimental test laboratories. I have my test laboratory at the university. I have another test laboratory at my home. So I did some experiment I will going to show you later to make the proof about the number of the amateur radio population among the countries. On the international level, we have our international organization that we in Serbia called ERU. I don't know if, how do you spell it in French or Arabic language in Morocco? How do you call it, ERU? International Radio Union. Yeah, but we make it short. In Serbia, we make it short, ERU, International Amateur Radio Union. And as you can see, we participate very strongly with the big international bodies, such as the ITU. You know, ITU is International Telecommunication Union, the top level in the globe, the top level organization that regulates radio waves, commercial radio waves, everything else, including the amateur radio. And WRCI is a World Administrative Radio Conference, etc., etc. When it comes to discuss about the radio spectrum, channel divisions, etc., etc. And finally, how to join the amateur radio? As I told you, I suppose that people who live here, who are already radio amateurs, are going to talk to you about the details. But eventually, I would strongly suggest you to try to remember this path. What is the best way? Start from the bottom and upgrade in the amateur radio activity. Why I'm suggesting you this? Well, because you can see 3 asterisks. 3 stars means at the end of this session, I will maybe ask you what is your path to become the radio amateurs. So try to remember some details. You don't need, I'm not a very strong teacher, so you don't need to remember all the details, but try to remember a little bit how you can upgrade in the amateur radio. I suppose it is the time for the coffee break. So please, coffee break is 20 minutes, half an hour or something like that. Professor is going to explain you. And after the coffee break, please come here in this room again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's continue with our session. You had an opportunity to hear from me what, generally speaking, what is the best way to become radio amateur. And now, just a few minutes ago, you had an opportunity to to hear from the people, from your fellow citizens from Morocco, how to become an amateur radio here. Why is that important? Because I told you that this slide, how to become a radio amateur, would be a question at the end of this show this afternoon. So please remember those parts. What is the learning path, how to become the radio amateur, because at the end we are going to make some examination, not the amateur radio examination, but some quiz, let's say, for you. So this is the general path. And if you are the lucky person, at the very end of your learning path, you are going to the electronic shop and you purchase your amateur radio station, or you build your own amateur radio equipment if you are good, skilled person in electronics, in building electronical devices or something like that. Okay, so let's discuss about one of the most popular amateur radio communication mode that is called the so-called packet radio. Packet radio is not something new. It is a thing that exists more than 25, maybe even 30 years now. But it is very popular in the Western countries, in the rich Western countries, technologically developed countries, such as United States, Great Britain, France, Germany, Italy, etc., etc. And that is why I want to try to motivate you, because it is the computing conference, to introduce you some joint activity of the telecommunications and the computing together. So, what is packet radio? Let's see. But before I start, I would like to inform you that last year I was visiting one country in Europe called Poland. You heard about Poland country in Europe. And I was there also for a conference very similar to the conference here. For your information, the name of that conference is CN, Computer Networks. So, if you are people who are working with the internet communication, multimedia communication, the content, the topics, major topics of that conference in Poland is very similar to this conference here. So, I can strongly recommend you to look at the internet in this year, in 1 month, somewhere in the second part of June. It will happen in Poland once again. It will be 25th occasion in tradition of that conference called CN 2018, Computer Networks, CN, Charlie Nancy, similar as the prefix for Morocco, but it is the name of the conference. So, when I was going there last year, I just wanted to check in reality how many amateur radio people in Poland, in that particular country, have been using computers together with the amateur radio stations, together. So, at my computer and telecommunication laboratory, I have one amateur radio email server. A little bit later, I will give you much more technical explanation of that email server, but for the very beginning, I can open this command line window, textual window, and ask for the information about some specific country. My inquiry usually starts with the letter E or I, which means information. I want to draw from the database of the amateur radio database the information about the particular country. And for example, in that country of Poland, they are using 4 types of prefix, national prefix. One is SP, which means Sierra Papa, and you can see star. Star means that something else comes here, one number and 1, 2, 3 alphabet letters around that. So, when I put, please give me information about Sierra Papa something in Poland, the computer system responded to me, not found. So, in Polish country, nobody at that period of time, it was, let's say, May or June last year, 2017, when I was preparing for that conference, the system responded me, nobody used. Then I tried the second one, SR, which means Sierra Romeo, something in Poland. And they returned me 2 lines, one person in Szczecin city of Poland, and one in the Olsztyn city of Poland. Some small cities in Poland, but okay, two people are working there. Next, I tried Sierra Quebec, SQ Sierra Quebec, and I got another one. Person with the name Jan or John in English. And finally, 3Z. 3Z, it is the 4th type of the prefix for Poland. Unfortunately, nobody with that prefix was using that. That's okay. So, as you can see, I typed my command in the bottom part of my screen. So, in the bottom part is something where I type by using my keyboard. And in the upper part of the screen is the response from the database, amateur radio database. So, that was the experiment in May or June 2017 about the Poland. Okay. Then I tried to compare with some other countries. For example, in November last year, I was invited by one of the best universities in Uzbekistan. You heard about country of Uzbekistan? Is it the Central Asian country, former member of the Soviet Union, whatever, in that time, now independent country, Uzbekistan Republic. They have been using those prefixes: Uniform Juliet, Uniform Kingdom, Uniform Lima, and Uniform Mike. And star means, you know, wild card, joker, so something else going in one number and some 1, 2, 3 characters beside. Unfortunately, I was very amazed in Uzbekistan country there not a single positive response about the radiometers using together a radio station plus computing. I didn't find anything. And when I was about for the conference in that country and gave the seminar similar like this one, they were amazed that nobody in the country. Okay, but they didn't trust me. They didn't believe me completely. And I knew that somebody will be very suspicious in the room. They will not trust me. Please, your database is very bad. Your database is empty. There is no call sign in your database. Okay, so I want to make a comparison. The comparison is my own country, Serbia. You can see Serbia. And for Serbia is Yankee Tango. And the system responded with my own record. This is my name, abbreviation of my name, Misko, which means Miroslav Skorik abbreviation. This is the zip code of my city, 21,000, the zip code of my city, and the name of my city is Novi Sad, and my call sign, and my local email server. So this is one record, particular record for myself. Because as I told you, in my computer and telecommunication laboratory, I have an email server, so at least I'm not the single person in the country. It is for sure. I'm not the single person, but at that particular moment, the system could recognize myself. Sorry?
The response of the request is just for the person who has connected in this moment?
Not exactly this moment, but let's say the people who have connected in the last 15 days, approximately. Let's say 10 to 15 days. Remember, after that, the system is automatically cleaning itself. So the system, clean itself for all the visitors, you know. So those are all visitors for, let's say, last 10 days, last week or something like that. But eventually you can tell me, okay, Serbia is not a big country. We have only 10 million people in the country. And I know that we have approximately 500 to 600 radiometers in the country. But I'm not the only one at that particular moment. But okay, I tried Germany. You can see, probably all of you know what is Germany. Germany is the #1 in technology in Europe. The #1 top-level country. And you can see this. For Germany, Delta Bravo. Delta Bravo, Delta Charlie, Delta Oscar, Delta whatever. Germans are a big country, 100 million of people, Germans, the thousands of radiometers in Germany. And you can see this. Enter to continue. This is one page. Enter the second page. Enter the second page. So only God knows how many Germans are there. But the system is working. So you can see the Germany. Okay, let's see further. Japan. Okay, Japan, not too much at that particular moment, but you know what? This is the email database in my country. And Japan is 10,000 kilometers from my country. So there is probability that the radio PET are not so perfect. So probably my database didn't record too much Japanese people. But eventually you can see one from Yokohama, one from Sayama, etc., etc. So Japanese are there. For your information, Japanese is Juliet Alpha and many others. 7 Mike is the prefix for Japan country. Russia. Russia. Unfortunately, only 2 persons at that moment. For Russia, his prefix is R, Romeo. Romeo number something. And you can see at least 2 of them. One is Moscow, and the other one, ORSK. That is abbreviation of some city name. I don't know which one is that. It doesn't matter. USA. USA as the #1 in the world, they have been using different prefixes. For example, I just wanted to check that one, kilo K, kilo something. So you can see people from Iowa, Ohio, Arkansas, Indiana, Michigan, Colorado, Arkansas. You can see addresses, the names, Mark, Theodore, Ken, Scott, Dennis, Brad, Dennis, Rick. That is the names of the radiometers. So you can see once again, enter to continue, enter the second page, enter the next page, next page, next page. Many people in the United States of America are using that system. And I can ask you, how many people in Morocco using that system? No one? So what do you think? Are Americans wasting time with this? Or they are thinking about the future in technology? You think about, you can compare your country with some other country. Which is better in technology? So that is the point, to think about if some countries are doing something wrong. France and Norway. You all speak French, but it doesn't matter in this situation. For France is so-called foxtrot something. So you can see several people in France, in different parts of France, including some islands, I don't know. In Norway, in Oslo. Oslo is the capital city of Norway, so at least one station is there. Lima Alpha 3 Romeo India Alpha. Lima Alpha 6 Charlie Uniform, etc., etc., whatever. But you can see, Norway as a democratic country, technically good country with very, very good standard of living, etc., etc. Great Britain, a lot of them. Several times I have typed enter, enter, enter for next slide, for next slide, for next slide, British radiometers. So they are using that technology without any problem. For the Great Britain, you can see it is G, Golf something. So you can see, for example, which one, the last one, Golf Bravo 7 Sierra Oscar uniform in the city of Bishop's Walton, whatever, but you can see other cities, Southampton, and other cities in Great Britain. So many people are using there in the Western countries, in technologically developed countries. Some small countries in Europe, Czech Republic, Austria, Denmark. You can see on the top level is Czech Republic, Austria, you can see Salzburg, Vienna, Innsbruck, etc., etc., Odense in Denmark, etc. Morocco, once again, unfortunately, as you can see, Charlie Nancy, Charlie November, not found in the empty database for Moroccan radiometers using data communication with computers. So if you can compare with that, but I wasn't sure. Maybe at that particular moment, my database was very stupid and gave me the wrong information. So I just wanted to check if the database was good, because eventually for Morocco, I didn't try that slide from Morocco last year. I did it 2 days ago, before I start to come here for this particular conference. So 2 days ago, this is the new one slide. So to check that one situation, I immediately tried once again the USA in the same slide. But this time, instead of kilo, I used N, Nancy, or November. Because as I said, Americans use kilo, alpha, November, and whiskey. Four prefixes for United States. And after I didn't found anything for Morocco, not found, I used Nancy something for Americans. So you can compare. Many people in Michigan, Missouri, New York, Michigan, whatever else. So many radiometers are using that technology in the United States of America. So it is, what to say after that? I tried France, just France once again, French radiometers and Spain, because you are bordering over the Gibraltar, you are bordering to Spain, to European continent. So I just wanted to check for France and Spain again. As you can see, a little bit better population of the radiometers in France than in Spain, but that is okay. Practically every country, let's say technically developed countries, is using that system. And if you ask me what actually they are doing this on this picture. This is the basic situation of the packet radio. You can imagine two correspondents. For example, I am the correspondent number A, and my colleague from Rabat is the communicator number B. And what we should do here, one computer, not a big deal. I always suggest the people, please don't waste your money on high expensive computers for the amateur radio. Please don't do that, because you can use very old, outdated computers. What you need is a good modem, the black box in between, the computer, and the radio station. And now you can see a talkie-walkie or small radio station like this one in this photo. But what is the most important thing? You can't communicate by the amateur radio if you don't have so-called direct visibility or optical link or whatever you want to say in between two antennas. So please save some money for good antennas. This antenna must hear the signal from that antenna. So if you are living in a big apartment building, or if you are working in the big university like this hotel or something like that, you don't you should always think about making better antenna than this one. I'm going to show you something. This is factory new device and factory new antenna. But what I can do, I can dismantle that antenna. Very easy. Dismantle that antenna and put one extension cable. And one extension cable goes through the door to the window to the top level of this room. And with this small radio, I can reach maybe 20 kilometers around. Unfortunately, with this small antenna, I can only speak maybe because it is concrete building. It is the obstacle for the signal. So within the building, I can't use that antenna. I can't talk to the reception, maybe eventually to the parking place or something like that. But if I go out to the street, I can use the same antenna to talk to people, let's say 5-10 kilometers from around. But if I remove that antenna and put a cable and put a good antenna on the top roof of this building, I can make 20 kilometers with the same radio. So please save your money. Don't spend your money on the computers. You can use some old 10 years old laptop or desktop computer, whatever you want. Instead of that, the money you saved, invest into good antennas. Much better than this one. Without the, let's say, optical visibility, or I don't know, there are different kinds of terminology for the optical visibility. That doesn't mean that this antenna must be visible to that one. It can be visible, imaginary visible, but 20 kilometers from here, 1,000 kilometers from here. But it can hear the signal. If your antenna is bad, if your antenna is hidden somewhere, you are not going to hear anybody. So your antenna must be expanded somewhere. So this is so-called direct amateur packet radio. So what you have one modem somewhere in between. This black box is the modem. And that box is actually the analog digital conversion from the digital signal of the computer to the analog signal that similar to the people voice and go to transmit the signal outside. In this situation, I have the same system here. I have one computer. In this situation, it is a laptop computer, very old, some 10 years old computer. I have one modem. A little bit later, we are going to talk, maybe in the afternoon or in this session, I will see. We will talk more details about the modems. So exactly this red box is one modem. It is attached by the USB to the computer and directly goes to the sound card. It is the special construction of the modem that works together with the sound card, and the other end goes to the radio station. Very simple. So when you become the radio amateur here in Morocco or in any other country, you just can purchase one very cheap radio, or let's say $50, $60 or maybe $100 for talking to the microphone. But to the extension, to the connectivity, for the external microphone, you put the cable to the modem and to your computer, and you can exchange data without much investment in this situation. Okay, but unfortunately, as we all know, the living is not ideal. Our living is not, the technology is not so perfect. We always have some problems. I intentionally left this situation, and I would like to ask you, do you have any idea, because it is in Serbian language, do you have any idea what is the problem here? In technology means. For example, snow and hurricane and something that blocking the signal. Okay, I have translated it for you. So you can see on the left side we have transmitting, emitting station. On the right side is a receiving station receiving the signal. And just imagine that the station on the left trying to send some, I don't know, some PDF presentation, some Word document, whatever else. And unfortunately, we have some atmospheric bad conditions. Bad conditions can be everything. It can be hurricane, fog, high rain, snow, whatever else can be. And you have some errors on the right side. And how we can prevent that situation? We can prevent that situation by using the commercial, let's say, normal technologies. We split our information into the smaller chunks, and every chunk of information, we call it packet, needs to be confirmed by the receiving end, and after that, we are going to send the next one chunk of information. So just imagine in the top level line, it is the first chunk of information came here. Now we are confirm the receiving of packet number 1, automatically packet number 2, then confirmation. The confirmation was broken, so the packet number 2 was sent 2 times, but now it was rejected because it was successfully received here, so automatically packet number 3, etc., etc. So it is very easy. Every chunk of information needs to be confirmed at the recipient side, so it is not a big deal. It is used in the internet, the same technology practically. And this is the real problem. The real problem is, for example, not only the geographical distance between 2 stations. For example, it is very easy if I'm here in Sal area of Rabat and my other correspondent is in the center part of the city, is just a few kilometers, no problem at all. But what is the problem if you have a big mountain somewhere in between? So you have to build an amateur radio repeater. So in the amateur radio technology, we do not use commercial repeaters of any kind. We don't use mobile telephony base stations. We don't use internet as a repeater. We don't use, I don't know, Wi-Fi, fixed telephony, whatever else. We just build our own repeaters on the good locations. And as you can see, repeater is nothing much more than the typical radio station at the end user. So this typical station I can put here and only one modem. The only difference between this modem and that modem is in the internal software. So technically speaking, it is very, very cheap machinery. You can build a repeater, let's say $50 or maybe $100 for radio, and let's say $100 for a modem, and this is repeater station. The biggest issue is how to find the electricity at the top level of the mountain. That is the problem sometimes. But you know what? In my experience, in my country of Serbia and in my former country of the communist, socialist Yugoslavia, you probably heard about Yugoslavia, we usually tried to attract the government to help us by giving us some free space at the commercial buildings where there is already electricity. So we didn't pay for the electricity by the government. So we got the electricity for free, just build our repeater station, our antenna, that's all. So in that case, our signal goes from the station A to the top level of the mountain and go translated to the station B, not a big deal. I'm not going to waste your time with some other details. This is something to remember. We call that repeater or digital repeater because it is for the data traffic. Digital repeater, or in short, we call it shorter digipeater. Digipeater or a node. When we say a node, that doesn't mean the end user station. The node is a repeater station for the amateur radio only. And this is one 3D example. You can imagine this situation practically everywhere in the world. For your information, number 7, as my call sign, Yankee Tango 7, Mike Papa Bravo. Number 7 is the geographical area around my city. in my province in Serbia, so-called Novi Sad area. Novi Sad is the name of my city where I live, and we use in our identification the number 7. On the opposite side, in Belgrade, you heard about Belgrade. Belgrade is the capital city, political capital city of Serbia, and there is number 1 in that area. Distance between my area of Novi Sad and Belgrade is approximately 100 kilometers, or 100 miles, a little bit there. What is the problem? The problem is in between Novi Sad and Belgrade area is a relatively high mountain. Not too high, but approximately some 600, 700 meters. But eventually Novi Sad is almost on the sea level, 80 meters on the sea level, and Belgrade is something similar. So if you have a big mountain in between, my signal with such a small station can't go to Belgrade, and in the opposite direction. So in this situation, we just put one repeater on the top level of the mountain. That is no problem at all. So in that case, my signal goes upstairs to the mountain, and after that it goes retransmitted to Novi Sad or to Belgrade and the opposite direction. And as you can see here on the left side, you can even discover some technical problems on the short distance. For example, if you live in a very big city, such as the big cities, I don't know, in China where 10 million people live there, or in India, or in America, in New York, or London, or Paris, in very big cities, you can build very high buildings, skyscrapers, etc., etc. So sometimes your signal can't reach the other correspondent, maybe eventually, let's say, 3 or 4 or 5 kilometers in between. Even in that situation, you can use a repeater. A longer path, but it can help you. So it is not a big deal. We regularly build repeaters. If I understood properly the situation here in Rabat, people here have built repeaters for voice communication, but they still do not have repeaters for data communication. So I strongly recommend to think about that in the future, to make a repeater for the data communication here in Rabat. And maybe for this similar conference next year or in a couple of years, I would like to come again and to use some digital repeater in this part of Morocco country. Okay, after we build at least 1, 2, 3 or more repeaters, we have, let's say, we can talk about the network. So in this situation, you can see repeater R1 on the top high mountain, repeater R2, the same situation. But in opposite to that, repeater R3 can be built on the top level of a very large building like this hotel or something like that. I don't know how much floors do you have the biggest building in Rabat city. Maybe probably you have some skyscraper, maybe or something like that, or 10, 20, 30 floors or something like that. And on the top level, you can build a repeater. So repeater can, on the high building, can help to the people who are living in urban zones, in cities, can help. And what is the travel path? Just imagine that my signal tries to travel from the user A, go to the first repeater, then retranslate it to repeater R2 or to repeater R3, and from there to translate it to the end user B or the end user C. It is very important to tell you something. Amateur radio is not a competitor to the commercial systems. We never try to be a competitors to the governmental systems, to the commercial systems, to the other kinds of official systems. We are not going to compete with the internet. We are not going